In a different video, I talked about views and we talked about just basically understanding views, did a little demo on creating one. And there's a lot of benefits to views, but there's one thing that we can go to the next level and make views even better, and that is what we're talking about in this video, indexed views. So if you haven't seen the video called Understanding Views, and these things are new to you, you may want to go watch that video and then come back and watch this one. When we create a view, then that is a non-indexed view. If we didn't create an index on it, it's just a view or a non-indexed view. And like I mentioned in the Understanding Views video, it performs the data lookup every time it's referenced, meaning if I do select asterisk from cust.info, and cust.info is my view, then every time somebody runs that query, then the query that makes up that customer info or the cust.info view, it gets executed. Any data aggregations, joins, all that stuff are done during that execution every time a query uses that view. And so while we have saved the end user a little bit of confusion, we are still running these complicated joins and aggregations and groupings and things over and over and over against our database. And that's what it's there for, but wouldn't it be cool if there was a way to kind of lighten the load on the database from all of our views being run over and over and over? And Microsoft to the rescue, there is. We can do what's called an indexed view. Now, when we apply an index onto a view, well, we're doing the same thing as when we apply indexes to tables. We're going to tell the view, hey, wait a minute, I want you to put some pointers in this view so that I can pull data from this view as if it was in a particular order. When you do that, SQL Server persists that view in physical storage in the database. What that means for you is that when you basically use that view, it just selects it from that persisted data that's in the database. It doesn't actually go out and run the query over and over and over. This prevents that overhead of aggregations, joins, and all that other stuff. Now, there's something else that's really cool here. Haven't talked about the Query Optimizer. The database administrators deal with the Query Optimizer a lot. But anytime that SQL Server gets ready to execute a query, this family of technologies called the Query Optimizer does all kinds of space-age stuff in the background. It looks at the data and it analyzes it, runs a number of algorithms, and it tries to determine what's the most efficient way to get this data. Even on a query that you'd never even thought about using an indexed view on, if SQL Server sees that there's an indexed view and it realizes, hey, wait a minute, I could satisfy Jack's query a lot better if I used Mark's indexed view over here, it'll go grab that indexed view and use it. And so this can actually help you when other queries get performed on your machine. There are some considerations you need to think about with index views, and these are exactly the same considerations that you have with indexes on a table. When you index a view, additional storage space is required because the data that's returned by that view gets persisted or written into an internal database in SQL Server, and so your particular end user database is going to get larger. So it's going to take more space. The more indexed views you have, you're going to use more space. And when you make a change to any of the base tables that are involved in the indexed view, if it affects the indexing or the order of the data that's being returned by the indexed view, then those pointers have to be updated in the indexed view. And so you're adding overhead to the process of updating those tables. So just keep those in mind. So what you're always trying to do is balance between which of these will work. So what you need to do here is take this knowledge of indexed views, go out to Books Online, look at some examples, build some, and then your database administrator will be able to tell you whether these things are helping or hurting when he or she runs like index tuning wizards, when they do SQL profile or traces, and that sort of thing. But they can kind of give you some feedback on what's going on with these things. Just like everything else in SQL Server, there's a balancing act here. You don't want to create 5,000 index views. This doesn't need to become your solution for everything. But if you're using views, you need to investigate and see if indexed views wouldn't help, because there are a lot of situations where index views can dramatically lower the load on SQL Server and increase response time on the view functionality itself. So this is something else you need to be aware of in your development and go take a look at.